Hi, this is Bob, and this is about the Marvel Shebler carburetor for the Model A Ford, 1928 to 1931. I decided to try one of these on my car, and I bought this one here from a fella on eBay that rebuilds them, and it was all set to go, and he did a good job on it, and it works really nice in the Model A. So I liked that. I have adapted the air maze filter to fit it. It was really quite easy to do. I was able to take this off, chuck it into a big drill press vise, and using a drum sander inside the hole here, I sanded the hole a little bit bigger so it will fit on the Marvel Shebler. The Marvel Shebler has a little ridge right here, and that fits right up in there nice and snug, so I think it fits in there really good, and will work just fine on the Marvel Shebler. Now, this air filter does not filter out does not filter out small dust particles, but it will keep larger things out, and also it is a very good fire preventative to have on your Model A Ford. So that's why I adapted it here and got it working. Now, this was known as the Sears Model 2405 and was sold by Sears Roebuck for many, many years. I found that the power with this carburetor in the car, when I put my foot down on the pedal, is just as good as the Zenith. In fact, I couldn't tell any difference myself. So in that respect, it's the same as far as I can tell. I find that it has a much smoother, slower idle. I really like that. I like to have that slow idle so that I can shift into first gear easily. When you go to shift into first gear, your clutch assembly, your clutch, and that main shaft coming out of the transmission are spinning freely. And they then have to be stopped somehow, and that is by rubbing against the gear when you go to shift into first. So when you go to shift into first, you'll hear that little bit of a rubbing. Those gears were made to take that. They've got a rounded nose on each one of the little teeth in the transmission on those gears, and they're made to take that. But you get that idle down slower, and it's much easier to shift into first when you're stopped at a traffic light or something. Another thing I've noticed with the Marvel Shebler is that the float faces this way instead of this way. On the Zenith carburetor, the fuel sloshes to the front of the carburetor when you make a quick stop, or you're coming downhill and you're making a stop, and with that fuel running forward towards the forward part, the actual hole that feeds the fuel on idle is towards the back, and so the fuel sloshes forward and your engine stalls. And I've had it stall in some places where I was a little bit anxious with heavy traffic and things like that, and the thing stalls. These don't do that. So that's one of the really nice things about this carburetor. I think it has a smoother overall operation than the Zenith carburetor, a smoother, slower idle, and I think you get a little bit better gas mileage too, but I have not tested that. But it just seems to me in driving with it that I'm getting a little better gas mileage. Like I say, I haven't tested it, so it may be a little bit better. And let's see what else I got here. Yeah, the mixture sleeve on this one here, this mixture sleeve, or that they call it the driver, the choke driver, that's what they call it. The choke driver was very hard to turn and slide up and down. It slid up and down really hard, and the reason is that the needle that screws in here with the hex shaft on it, these have a hex shaft on it instead of a split shaft like in the Zenith, and those hex shafts are available. The needle shaft in here is available from Renner's Corner. If you get on Google and you look up Renner's Corner, you will find out there's a Renner's Corner parts supply that sells parts for carburetors and things, and they have parts for the Marvel Shebler as well as the Zenith carburetors too, and they've got that new one, and I bought a new one. This one in here is the one that came with the carburetor. It was bent, and I managed to straighten it out. I chucked it in the drill press, and I ran it down into a piece of wood gently. I made a little dip in the wood, and then I turned the drill press by hand. I could see how it went this way and that way. I took a little tiny wood block and a very small hammer and tapped on the end of it, and was able to straighten it out, and it works fine. I also ordered a new one too from Renter's Corner, which I have in the drawer over there, and if I need it, I'm going to get it out. But I was able to straighten this out. I expected it to break when I was working on it, but it didn't break. It straightened out pretty good, and it should be nice and loose like that, so that it can slide back and forth loose, because when you pull that choke out to start your engine and you let go of that choke rod, you want it to go back in on that spring like it's supposed to, and if it doesn't, you have to push it back in, and then it turns real hard. It just isn't good. So I like to have them loose like that, and that's the way they should be. So I got them both so that they work really nice and smooth like that. And what else? I guess that's it. I really like the fact that it doesn't stall. The engine doesn't stall when I come up to a corner and put my foot on the brake, or when I'm going downhill and put my foot on the brake. And is there anything else here I forgot to mention? I guess that's it. You know, this company, Marvel Shebler, is still in business. They make carburetors and work on carburetors for aircraft. And if you go search for Marvel Shebler Carburetors on the internet, you will find that company, and they have a website, msacarbs.com. msacarbs.com. And I mention that because on their website, they've got the history of the Marvel Shebler Carburetor Company, which is very interesting. They started in 1905. So, and then during the Model A era, they were sold by Sears. The Model 2405 Sears Carburetor is Marvel Shebler, which is what these are. They didn't put any name or date or anything on the carbs, so some people call them the no-name carburetor, but they are a Sears Model 2405, and a very good carburetor. When you put this on the car, you want to be careful not to tighten too tight, for two reasons. This is a cast metal, pot metal, I guess you would call it. I don't know. Cast aluminum, but it's pretty easy to strip the threads here. Also, if you tighten it up too tight, you will pull these ears up on this side and this side, and it won't fit flat. So you just want to bring it down, just snug it with I use a very small wrench. I've got the wrench that I use right here. That's what I use, and I don't tighten it up real tight. I just tighten it up kind of snug. And I also put lock washers on the top. On the Model A, manifold has got a steel part up here, or I think it's forging. It's a forging, but I put a lock washer on there, and then when I see the lock washer compress, then I go about that far. Just a little bit, snug it up a little bit, and that's all you need. And with the lock washer in there, it's not going to go anywhere. And so be careful when you're tightening these up, not to tighten them too tight. I guess that's it, everybody. So by golly, keep those Model A's out there running.